I stole this title from a friend at Stanford that talks about post-heroism in construction, and I thought I could inherit that and talk about post-heroism in BIM. And what I mean by that, it cuts if I go that. Okay. We've been on a journey. I think you guys have seen this hype curve. It talks about how a technology comes into a market and how everybody talks about it a lot and tells us how everything is going to be marvelous with it. Today's blockchain, AI, machine learning, deep learning, neural network. You hear it. Actually, nothing productive much comes out. And then you go into a deep depression, the valley of disillusionment, and then you slowly get out of it. And I think that contractors in the US made that journey with BIM and got to a plateau of productivity in 2013. And I think in the UK, some of us got there in 2016. It's now 2019, so what does that look like, and have we been asleep for the following 3 years? So where we got to is that BIM is not that helpful as a word, and what I'd like to share is how we make it useful again. So the hypothesis I started with is simple, is that actually BIM can be a strategy for reinventing construction and all that sort of stuff, but ultimately it's also a technology that allows us to encode the data of the built environment. So we stop talking about drawings, PDF, lines, and we start talking about object and sharing that object information. And so we digitize our industry, which we know is the least digitized in the world except forestry, not because we didn't want to be digital, but just because it didn't work yet, despite the Autodesk brochure. Sorry, Steve. We know it's really, really hard, and the more we do of it, it's really, really hard. But let's hold on to that thought, that it might just be the medium, in the same way as the internet became a medium to do business, and we talked about e-business for 10 years, then we had a stock market crash in 2000, and then we rebuilt the e-businesses, and now they're called retailers, or they're called music stream. We have a completely new generation of businesses created for the digital medium. And so happened that my unfortunate past is that I'm a bit of a geek. I was born wanting to sail, and I bought my first computer to try to figure out how to go faster. It was a Zilog Z80, totally hopeless thing to try to do anything useful for. I then went to the aerospace industry simply because they had the biggest computer in the world, and that's a Cray, and it's less powerful than my iPhone, but we could play with that. Then I ended up in automotive, and at about the right time as well, because in 95, 96, tech became powerful enough to manage the simpler world of automotive. Because ultimately the world of automotive is vast, but nowhere near as vast as the world of real estate and construction. And by that time, creating an Oracle system that would be end-to-end, that would carry about 80 plants, 100,000 employees, about 30,000 SKUs, and could manage a whole supply chain across 100, 150 commercial countries, became amenable. In fact, somewhere in the room, one of my ex-colleagues, Edwin, there he is. We left that world of the ERP revolution. The reason why tech worked is because you made your money back in 6 months, right? The automotive embraced technology to make more money because it became a qualifier to compete, because the technology suddenly became powerful enough. And I came to the industry, construction industry, by accident, having done business in automotive, having servitized stars, having deployed commercial organization here in Asia. Somebody said, hey, we have a company called Atlas. We think it's going to work really well. And so they said, you don't know anything about construction. They were right. But you understand business and tech. Come and run Atlas. So I took Atlas, and we grew, and we crashed, and we discovered BIM, and the rest, as they say, is history. And yes, the first project that I got to talk about was the Abu Dhabi Louvre, where it was a recurring theme. I was there only 12 months ago, and the pleasure of seeing a building, because we need to celebrate that. I mean, that space is amazing, absolutely amazing. But without technology, you do not assemble a jigsaw of steel where every piece is different. And as you are adding one, it deflects, and then it deflects, and then it deflects, and recalculate backwards what the shape should be before it's added the extra weight. It's absolutely amazing what's possible now with technology. And we're starting to see where it makes sense. When you want something spectacular, we can do it now. So that means that today I stand in front of you as a weird geek guy that does three kinds of things. The first one is I get asked a lot by venture capitalists and boards and the like in startup world, you know, help us, and is this tech going to work? Does it really solve a problem? Will we exit? That kind of stuff. Second part is digital transformation. I'm going to have to find a new word for that, but more of that in a minute. And typically it is about how do we transform the business for this new e-business world of BIM. And then sometime I do stuff as well, not just talk about it, and I was really privileged, in fact, to meet the Borough Apple guys nearly 5 years ago now, and we actually put this into action. It says, well, what are we going to use the tech for? And I think that's a very important question, and I think that's the subject of post-heroic BIM, when we stop talking about BIM. Because we need to go from talking about BIM, which is a digitization. We just digitize. We put the drawings, we actually turn that into a model. The information that we were conveying in a drawing, we've now managed to encode it. We need to start thinking, right, now that it's digital, what do I do, right? You know, the DVD became Netflix. What's the Netflix in our industry? The USB, who used those? Oh. Became Dropbox. You know, TomTom, the digitized map, became Waze. What are those things in our industry? And why are we talking about the USB stick? So I think it starts here. The first thing is this guy, which we all know, had a vision and he was declared totally insane, like a computer on every desk. That is crazy. Nobody wants to do that. I've got my secretary that types for me. I don't touch a keyboard. That's not for me. He was completely crazy, wasn't he? So BIM means a model on every desk for me. That's like the starting point. The model on every desk. We have a bit of a problem because all of us here, welcome to the BIM church. The church where all of us come to talk to each other. We don't talk to the rest of the universe, of the industry. So this is a data mapping of all the papers and all the articles about our industry, and you can see they all sort of talk to each other, sustainability and policy conservation, planning permission, they all sort of talk to each other except one BIM church. Welcome to the BIM church. That is a big problem. And then we end up there, right? Yeah, you have your BIM consultants that talk to you about all sorts of things. It's like, I want to present better, but now I have a PowerPoint consultant that's talking to me about PowerPoint templates and graphic standard. And you're going, wow, this is really cool, but not for me. You know, you have a PowerPoint department in your organization. Who has a PowerPoint department? Who has a BIM team? Oh, that becomes a little bit more aggressive. So my word is no more BIM heroes. Sorry, Samit. Where are you? So So you know the Hidden Figures, as a wonderful movie about those women that ran the computer department at NASA, right? It's like, it was at the back room where the computer was, you know? So like the hidden BIM figures, the back room where the BIM guys are. Like, Anna, you're the global lead for BIM at Borough Apple. How big is your team? 0 or 1,800, you choose. Right? It's like, how big is the PowerPoint team? Insane. How big is the email team? Stupid. So this is my manifesto. Let's move on. To what becomes the question? What are we going to use the tech for? And I think it's important that we pause for a minute that if we get it wrong, this happens. You know, if we continue to run our industry and ignore tech, we will have accidents. We are failing society. Our responsibility is to build the built asset environment as well as we can. And if we continue to use pen and paper, maybe we're going to miss opportunities, but more importantly, we're going to kill a lot of people. So it matters. I think it is important, and I'm not an architect, I'm not even from the industry, but I can read. We know that our purpose relates to the built asset environment. It's about doing what we do better, so build buildings better. We have a responsibility to make these buildings better. So let's stop talking about how do we do the wrong product better. Let's also talk about making the right product. And then remember that that product has a fundamental societal responsibility. Now, if you put it in those terms, you then think that if we are not using tech, we are negligent to our society. And, you know, this is not new. This is why the Institute of Civil Engineering was founded that far back. Put engineering at the service of society. Are we being negligent in not using tech? Are we being negligent in not mobilizing the power of silicon? Are we really participating in the fourth industrial revolution? So, obviously, I'm here to say post-heroic BIM is about participating actively. And I think Warwick earlier on talked a little bit about these holy cow moments. And it's an exponential technology. An exponential technology, by definition, surprises you. It bites you. It's nothing until it's something big. Remember, the iPhone was launched. Nokia said it's not smart. Microsoft said it's the most overpriced phone ever. Both of them are not in the mobile phone market anymore. Ignore at your peril. There are all sorts of other products that failed, but every so often one succeeds spectacularly. It's really difficult to know which one, because there are lots of people like me standing, oh, it's going to happen, it's going to happen, it's going to happen, and then it doesn't. And sometimes it sort of does happen and intersects with reality, right? The predicted curve of the person intercepts with reality, and then we call that person a genius. It's just accidental. So I'm no genius. I don't know what's going to happen. But I can predict that it is exponential and it's going to be big. And that's what we call digital transformation, the market transformation, the business transformation, when we start using tech. To help us, we can remember, and this is from MIT Sloan, it's 2011, it's really old. It's like everybody has seen in their own life that if you just digitize, you end up like Sony or the retailer that used to retail vinyl and CDs. You die. If you use the tech and are really excited about it, but you don't have a market, you also die. If you just use the tech to optimize, well, you tend to build a big business against an existing market. Who knows Rio? One? Rio had 95% market share of the MP3 player. They invented the MP3 player. They are the one that said, hey, you know that MP3 track, don't put it on a CD, let's put it on a hard drive. It's a good idea. It's called Optimize. But then after that, somebody else said, yes, but if we put it with iTunes, if we put it in a better product, if we put it with Apple Music, then I end up owning the whole market. And then Spotify comes along, which is Napster again, but in a transformed market. So we know that if you digitize, you die. If you get excited and innovative ahead of your market, you die, but having fun. And really, you need to move to survive. That's like your key step. Move to survive, and then move to thrive. So it's very theoretical, so I thought I'd share a few minutes to explain what I see, and I'm ready to be challenged. What I see, what these different boxes look like, focusing on die, survive, and transform. And again, it's an opinion. So, how we build buildings better, that's just the digitized stuff, right? Arcadis is telling us BIM 100%. I mean, everybody has a BIM 100% program. Then after that, you do a maturity measurement to show that you're really 100%. And once you're at 100%, you get an ISO certification for it. Okay, well done. You die. And then you do it at the next level of granularity, and then you create Power BI dashboards. Yeah. We know. And then you get things like the guys from Kinship are in the room. Oh, maybe not. Oh, Gary's there. So, thank you, Gary, for taking your idea with Jose 4 years ago, 5 years ago. He says every time there is a save to central, why don't we image the metadata of the model and then map it so that you know exactly what's happening in your enterprise, you know exactly how many models you have, who's working on what model, what families they're using, what shared parameters they have, what is the model health. All that data, that is 4 years ago, the power of data analytics in the digitized world. So yes, to be totally explicit, if you're not running like that, you're 4 years late. So, that was the boring bit. That was the die bit. We don't spend too much time on that, but you have to do it. Let's get to building better buildings. So we sort of start getting those words all the time. Design collaboration, modern methods of construction, design interoperability, etc. So what does it take? So again, I'm stealing here. So Randy Deutsch, he was in Sydney only a few weeks back. He talks about super users, and I think that's really interesting to see the shift in the industry towards people that have computational thinking, 3D modeling, BIM thinking, and getting into this converged state of an employee you would see in Facebook or Amazon. Right? Tech is what they breathe, and they don't. They're millennials, essentially. That's how they want to work. They would walk right out if your company didn't have computers, and soon they will be walking right out because you're actually not using the tech for anything useful, right? Email is so 1980s. Software is eating the world. This, again, is like Mark Andreessen, 2011, 8 years ago. Right, including our industry. This is not new. We need to make it work. At Borough Happold, this was posted only a couple of days back because, it's 2 years old now. We figured out that everybody needed to be a super user, right? So there's not enough BIM on every model, a model in every computer, every project in BIM, dashboarded, mined, measured. Yes, all that was done. Now, all these models need to be managed and mobilized computationally. So, we've got some work to do, but yes, about 500 of our employees now are systematically using visual programming. So we mean Dynamo, Grasshopper, Node-RED, Visual Basic. That's like the minimum. We will not recruit people today at graduate level that don't have that. You can't get a job at Facebook if you don't know how to code, right? Why do you want to come to our industry? We don't harbor, digital inferior people that like digital refugees that looking for an industry where nobody uses digital and didn't want to use it. That's not what we are. Because when you put it to work, these are real figures from Katera. I mean, they're a little bit old. They go back to February. But they're just radically optimizing. So they've got tech guys. And so producing the construction information automatically for them is a 70% automatable task. So once you fully automated it, then you put it to work so that you can optimize. Which way do I build? Because I've automated how I would build. I've got 10 different options. Unless the computer calculates those different options, and I figure out my equation between life cycle cost, carbon footprint, you name it. You find a site, you understand your logistics cost, your labor rate at the site, the cost of design, etc. And it tells you for that site, this is how you build it based on the factory footprint we have. Automated. We work, those more observant have seen the little holy cow has appeared. And for me, that was a holy cow moment. It's happening. It's happening. This is not theory. It's happening. The guys at WeWork figured out that they could optimize their floor plate to get a greater yield. And so their thinking is that the engineer needs to think around data. This is standard. You don't work at WeWork if you don't understand data. It's a data-driven business. The UK, in terms of modern methods of construction, understands that there's a bit of a chicken and egg problem. It's like, to industrialize construction, you have to build a factory. If you build a factory and there is no market, I'll go bankrupt. But the buyer that wants to buy a building created out of modern methods of construction can't expect a factory to be there if he doesn't place an order. So the UK spent a lot of work, a lot of time with the guys at Brighton Wood, at Cambridge, at Borough, to figure out what are amenable business types, and then they are committing to put 20% of their purchases into these type of products. So they are creating a market so that factories will be created. For the story, I don't know if the video is running. It is, so I can't really say. Let's put it another way. The reaction of the audience in the UK, which is running, they're contractors and subcontractors that have been very happily running their business for a very long time. This sounds like a big change and a big investment, so I'm not sure that really there is that much for me in it. So they don't sort of necessarily embrace and jump with joy. Some do, but not everybody. So to make sure that that happens, all you need to do is to make sure that somebody else enters your market. And if you are the UK government, it's very easy. You invite one of the Japanese experts at prefab, and you give them a 15 million incentive to come and build a plant. So you can reread the news of the Japanese opening their plant in the UK as the UK government is deadly serious in making sure that the whole industry goes this way. And they've understood in terms of efficiency, in terms of the approach, is it volumetric, is it componentized, is it manufactured and assembled? And then the kind of guys at Borough Happold, we say, right, then this is really simple. We put together our code, it assembles bits that have been defined, and then automatically the computer will generate the design, and that's become a totally automated generative design solution. I showed this like sort of 3 or 4 years ago because this is quite old now. But what is changing is that there is now a market because the factories are telling us this is what we make. The government says this is what we want to build. We now have 2 boundary conditions, what to build and for who, and then the computer calculates what are the options. And then the Revit model becomes an answer. Right? The Revit model is not an input. The Revit model is the answer. out of which we can print out a drawing and get planning permission, if we need to have a drawing. So this world of leverage is a world where really working with tech becomes fun, but becomes a qualifier to compete. Again, I've just taken that quote from the internet. I think everybody is saying these kind of things, but hopefully now we're evidencing why the market is going that way and how you do it and what might be the outcome, which I hope would be we're building better, which is nice and earns ourselves the right to survive, according to the digital transformation theory of MIT. You know, maybe they don't know what they're talking about. So then really we said, yeah, but this is all very boring. You know, you haven't said anything new. I saw your presentation 3 years ago. You were showing the same thing. What has changed? So the question then becomes, what happens when we actually want to make better buildings and transform? And again, I don't know. I try to answer, but I don't know. What might be in that top right box. This is my best attempt so far. And to say about 40 years ago, you see, 12th of March 1989, a chap drew this weird document, which was vague but exciting. This was his supervisor's note on Tim Berners-Lee paper proposing the internet. And that was connecting information, different information sources. Before the World Wide Web, all the information silos could talk to each other by FTP and by email, but actually the information couldn't be referenced. Sounds familiar when the architect sends by FTP to the MEP contractor, and you know, it's like we live in the pre-1989 world. And we know what the internet did for business, for society. In fact, for society, in March 2004, 15 years later, this guy took a patent. This is the Facebook patent. This is the invention of Facebook, the social platforms, where instead of connecting information, we started connecting people. Interesting thought, because actually the people, they live in the built asset environment. Now we're talking to people, we're talking information. What's missing? Again, the guys at Wired proposed that it's the digital mirror. The digital mirror that we put up to our physical world. In fact, it's so plausible that some guys, I don't know who he is, proposes that we're already living in a digital mirror. We're already living in the matrix. We're already gone down the blue tube. Again, I hope not. I don't know. So far, our simulations don't match with reality, so it's a really fucked up digital mirror if we can't make a mirror of the mirror, you know. But anyway, so that could be one way to think, right? First was the internet, second was a social network, third is the digital mirror, and some people, you know, they like to put their spin on the digital twin, the whatnots, I don't know. Let's just examine a few things we've learned from the previous two platforms so that we understand what it could offer us. The first thing is creativity doesn't go away. I mean, not many architects in the room, but I'm deeply enamored with the idea that we live into a built environment that is not standardized, and that really creativity dominates, and variation, and we celebrate diversity. And so it's really interesting to understand what is creativity and why creativity is a deeply human thing, despite the computer being there. And we know, for example, that creativity and diversity was, in fact, enhanced through YouTube, right? Because the conversation through Spotify and YouTube between the audience and its music and the artist is completely redetermined, reinvented. And so I think the digital mirror has that opportunity to really put the digital mirror up to the built asset and say, what's happening? You know, what's happening? And let the creative mind discover new, completely unexpected yet valuable ways to create the built asset, but at a completely new level of granularity, serving the long tail, providing a mechanism for feedback for users to say, I like that. Essentially, do what WeWork did with its meeting room, but at scale. Because we know that really form should follow data. Creativity is about providing an unexpectedly good result that data is confirming. The second thing that happened on the internet is we had completely new business models. And we talk about vertical integration, we talk about horizontal integration. What is really exciting is that if we have an internet of AEC, we will have completely new business models. And if we think this is completely crazy, we know that we are wrong because these guys have just announced their IPO at 47 billion. People are saying this is crazy, this is not possible, this is an overvaluation, they're only worth 10 billion. Only worth 10 billion. Only worth 10 billion, right? These guys have invented a way to put a digital mirror to the built asset, have created a new servitized business model, and created a 10 to 47 billion valuation business, I don't know what, where people really like to work. I think that's a success. I think we need to replicate that. What's really interesting is that when you work with the real estate gurus, they are saying, right, at the moment, the key metric of our industry is going to completely change, and we are headed for 30% of commercial real estate being servitized. Yes, I've just said that at the moment, in London is 7%, it was less than 5%. The market for servitized commercial real estate, the product, the office, is going to grow to 30% of market, and that will be served by a completely new business model, which is the horizontal business model. And when you get a small success, you build a multi-billion-dollar unicorn. Okay, they only operate in a few cities. They're not really touching India yet. They're not operating in China. I mean, they've not really scratched the surface, and they're already multi-billions. And they're only doing one product, the commercial real estate, the commercial office, for small startup. This is a huge market, serving the customer way better, way, way, way better. Do you want to continue talking about BIM? Do you want to continue talking about Revit template and shared parameter? I want to put that way back and start talking about what the market is doing and what our purpose is to build better products, things that work better for the customers. Third thing that we learned from the internet is that surveillance capitalism is a real problem. So the UK worked across sector and also across the built asset to talk about the principle of digital twins, that they need to be open, secure, insightful, value-creating, but they also need to have a purpose of the public good. Because if you don't, look at what happens. This is the vision of Microsoft. Let's do connected building. Let's be connected vehicle. Let's be connected logistics. Connected everything. Where does it go? That connected everything. Oh, Azure. Are you comfortable with that? I don't know. Maybe you are. I can only report what the guys in Toronto have suddenly realized, that when you do it for real, like Google is doing it for real, with Sidewalk Labs, suddenly people wake up and say, right, you've screwed the American election, you've screwed the Brits, and now you're going to come and screw Toronto? No, thank you very much. You know, one mistake is understandable, twice is, unfortunate, three is stupid. So surveillance capitalism, we need to have a discussion around that data. Who owns it, how we share it, how we make good and the public good, because there is huge power, billion-dollar businesses, better built asset environments. So those are the things we're learning. Let's have a. So who's going to get there? Becomes the interesting conversation. We had a conversation last night in those terms, that when the innovator is allowed to scale, he disrupts. Whereas when the incumbent works hard to use the tech, change its culture, then they get there before the insurgent. So there is this creation of a battlefield. That AEC internet becomes a battlefield for businesses. The insurgents, they're over there, and all of us have these insurgents in our businesses. They tend to wear AR goggles or talk about blockchain. Most of the business thinks that they are nice and crazy and we need that for the marketing brochure, but we're not going to do anything about it. The business that earns the right to survive is the one that puts the tech to work. First, the key message is either you're going to be a startup and you're going to try to scale, or you're going to digitalize as your business. Don't try, because you have the innovator dilemma, don't try to jump from legacy to transformed. You're going to have to digitalize and get your business into a fully digital culture first. So the battlefield looks a little bit like that, a fully integrated data platform supporting horizontal integration, vertical integration, removing the interface data loss and enabling the data transfer. So when we talk about, yes, but the contract requires a drawing, you see, what you've just done is created a disjunct between design and fabrication. So what Catera does is put it all in one business. What WeWork does is put it all in one business. They remove that contractual difficulty, and they come and kill us. We need to figure out how we can maintain, in the right way, that diversity of our ecosystem, but start sharing information at scale and work together. Knowing that sharing the information in our industry is a uniquely complex problem, because every other industry is highly concentrated and every business relationship persists for many, many years and supports very large business volume. So if you are BMW, you will be buying seats from retail automotive for the next 20 years. You can invest into a fully integrated ERP to ERP, because there's going to be something like 10 million euros of business going through that integration every day. Whereas our industry, we have a tier 1, a tier 2, a tier 3, a tier 4. We do a building and then we reconfigure our supply chain all the time. So an integration system a la automotive that's going to work for many, many years with millions of money flowing through it, I don't mind spending 100 or 200 or 300 grand to do the integration. But if I'm only going to be buying for 6 months a few tens of thousands of dollars, it needs to cost a penny or two. I cannot pay for that integration. So that is the unique issue that our disaggregated industry has. How do we solve that? Well, everybody is working on it. Singapore is talking about the integrated digital delivery platform. They have offered $5 million 50-50 investment into the person that's going to build their integrated digital delivery platform. The EU understands that it needs a digital ecosystem. It is investing 15 million euros to build and create that internet of AEC. Well, you know what the US would do. It takes a unicorn and it builds its own. So that's what Catera has done. It's just unmerged its tech platform, called it Apollo, and wants to become the operating system for construction. Yes, they want to build the equivalent of AOL or MSN, the place where everybody comes and work in, because it's connected, it's so much more efficient, and they only take 1 or 1.5% of your turnover for the privilege of using it. You can see that the Vision Fund is really, really happy. SoftBank. In the UK, I sort of went to the government and said, we can't let that happen. Give us some money. And so we put together a project team under Borough Happold. We put some architects, some tech guys, some construction guys, some university. We got lots of other people outside the UK, which the UK government didn't want to support because they're not Brit, but that we think were, really key to continue this initiative working, because you don't build the internet or something that looks like it by being closed, so anybody can join, but Arab has joined, Georgia Tech, which is the technical room of the Building Smart International group that's making an adjacent version of IFC, Hypar, Speckle, Atkins, and the names keep on adding. It's an attempt. It's an attempt. So I'm just sharing with you that what we're trying to build is a really simple thing that says when you want to move data from software A to software B, if we agree a TCP/IP type protocol or an HTML type protocol, then if everybody is using the same protocol and that protocol belongs to the community, then we can all connect. And nobody can extract rent from having a closed walled garden system. And of course, Autodesk is invited to join. It's on GitHub. It's only been running for about 7 months now. There's some live demo. If you go, you can find Speckle. That was an early implementation. You can find the Borough Happold object model, which is a generalized JSON object model. It's also open. And it's really an international movement. So just, GitHub, AC deltas. Your super users know where to find it. Because once you're there, you can start doing funky stuff, and I'll just finish there to make it a bit more. So this is an engineering firm, Borough Happold, saying, okay, so we've got some boundary condition, we've got some stakeholders, we've got some performance, we've got some design parameters, we've got some building elements that we need to configure. And yes, it looks like a machine learning graph because that is what it is. You can then configure, by taking reference of what's been built somewhere else, at scale, all the systems you want to connect. And the role of the engineer becomes one of a data intermediary that's connecting all these data sources to try to design the best space at scale for that site, for that client, for that use, for that construction method. Another holy cow moment. Then you need to make that into a model. There's a guy at the back. Where is he? Who's that? Where's Brett? He's over there. So once you have that, then you can start saying, well, yeah, but I need a list of pipe. I need this to be put inside a model. I need to build it. And that's what Brett is building. Augmented intelligence. At the back, you've got an AI graph that's mining the knowledge of the organization. It says, well, you've been building this for so many years. And we get to a point where finally, I think we started there this morning with SOM 40 years ago, mobilizing, and we called it CAD, right? Computer-aided design. What we got was AutoCAD, computer-aided drawing. And finally, after 40 years of trying, I think we're going to get computer-augmented design. We won't be calling it AI. It won't be scary. It'll just be what we wanted all along. So that's the internet, the third platform, the digital mirror, the digital twin, I don't know what you want to call it. What I want it to be is not scary. What I want it to be is transformational. And so I tend to finish on a video. I don't know if the video is going to work, because making tech work in construction is very difficult. But I'll try. Okay. So this is David Bowie. This is David Bowie being interviewed by the BBC. Just at Google time. Way before the iPod. David is a musician. Doesn't know about HTML, TCP/IP, data formats, data models. He hasn't met the iPhone.
Some of the claims being made for it are hugely exaggerated. I mean, when the telephone was invented, people made amazing claims.
I know, the president,
for example.
The president at the time when it was first invented, he was outrageous. He said he foresaw the day in the future when every town in America would have a telephone. Now how dare he claim like that? Absolute bullshit. No, you see, I don't agree. I think the internet, I don't think we've even seen the tip of the iceberg. I think the potential of what the internet is going to do to society, both good and bad, is unimaginable. I think we're actually on the cusp of something exhilarating and terrifying.
It's just a tool, though, isn't it?
No, it's not. No. No, it's an alien life form.
What do you think, I mean, when you think then about...
Is there life on Mars? Yes, it's just landed here.
But it's simply a different delivery system there. You're arguing about something more profound.
Oh, yeah, I'm talking about the actual context, and the state of content is going to be so different to anything that we can really envisage at the moment.
The days never seem the same. And these children that they spit on,
The music will stop.
as they try to change their world.
So it's not my words. I'm just restating what everybody is saying, but in a nice story. Don't want to take any credit. My colleagues at Borough Happold, they're building the stuff. I'm not building the stuff. You are building the stuff. The only thing that maybe I can bring is, please think like David Bowie. Don't talk about the tool. Yes, we have to fix the tool, and Autodesk needs to help us. And yes, we need to get the standards, because it doesn't work without standards. But please, 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 let's move on. It's been 10 years. Let's start building better, and more importantly, let's start doing better business. On that note.
Do you mind staying up and see if there's any questions?
Okay? There can be any questions. The hard one will go to Stephen.
Any questions for Alain?
Good.
Good.
Talk about blockchain.
Bingo. You know that tech bingo game? AI. I think distributed ledger is an interesting technology, but is it the right moment? I think you saw the uniquely distributed nature of our information map. That screams to me HTML. We employ and pay accountants and maintain ledgers in lots of expensive ERP systems. That screams people renting and extracting percentage of transaction. I think the guys that are working on blockchain for our industry are definitely on the right path, because what we're trying to do is enable micro-transaction, trusted, secure, distributed, for sure. That's very, very exciting. So I don't want to talk about blockchain. I want to talk about the problem that we will solve through technology, and blockchain definitely is a highly likely candidate to solve that problem. But is it too early? Is it like Spotify versus Napster? Talking about blockchain today, I think you see the future. Napster saw the future. We were going to stream music. The market wasn't there. Spotify is not a streaming business. It's a fan platform. It's a platform that allows us to really enter in a conversation with the artist and the music and the community, and this is what I stream, and this is my list, etc. And I think blockchain is a streaming technology, and soon I think we will be in a different world where blockchain is required to secure those AC delta shift of data.
When you think about the infrastructure that's in place now to manage all of that procurement and all of those things, that to me looks like the one thing that could actually be disruptive.
Hugely disruptive, because ultimately disruption is when you tap into a real revenue stream, right? Google was disruptive because it didn't disrupt the internet or it didn't disrupt search. It disrupted advertising. And advertising was a multi-billion-dollar business. Now, procurement supply chain today is a multi-billion business of being tied into a very, very static supply chain. Now, I think it's going to take 3 or 4 generations. First, I think you talk about it, you need to have absolute certainty, right? What BIM gives us, and let's never, poo-poo BIM. I don't want to kill it, really. Don't anybody says, I killed the BIM. I didn't. It's the way to have information certainty. Is the starting point. I know fully resolved what I want to build. Let's have got there. Then let's build it better from that point of certainty, and it's information-led. So then the next step is, okay, let's optimize the construction method. Let's computational engineering, redesign the thing for how it's going to be constructed. So the method and the design talking to each other. And we see startups doing that. Now that conversation then wants to be enabled with commercial information. And so we are seeing the commercial platform, Amazon, Alibaba, ESUB, all guys outside, Squiz, they all have the same idea. We connect the platform. Hey, this is what I could deliver for you tomorrow. Yeah, I don't know if it fits. Ask the computer. Ask the computer, can you redesign the building immediately on the fly for what I can find there? Yes, he can. Or she. I don't know. Is it a she or computer? It can, anyway. And it's very clever, so probably a she. And at that moment, you say, yeah, but I need to reduce the cost of transaction. We have the distributed ledger for that. So you see, we are 4 steps away from really it becoming absolutely disruptive. But let's remember, the idea of peer-to-peer banking is a really simple idea. In fact, banking started there, right? Banking was a promissory note, right? That's what a note means. That's banking, promissory note. So I can exchange information. Now, banks got into this really lovely position that, hey, I want to go to Australia. I need Australian dollars. Yeah, no problem. I have a monopoly for the exchange rate and the price. I need to send money to Australia. There is a counter trade somewhere else that's doing exactly the same. Why can't the 2 people, I want to send $100, you want to sell £100, let's match those transactions securely. No money moves. Don't need a bank for that. That's peer-to-peer banking. Now that doesn't work if there's no internet. Clear. That doesn't work if there's no browser. Doesn't work. Doesn't work if there's no encryption. Doesn't work if people are not connected. But once those 4 conditions are in play, kabam, you've killed the bank and you're doing fintech, right? So it's those 4 steps that our industry, it's sitting at the beginning. We are just like David Bowie, starting to see what could be. That's where I am.